Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for joining today. I am Cesar, head of product at DVF. Today I'll be presenting DVF Urban Insights, the platform we developed to help architects, urbanists, planners, and cities measure, quantify urban development according to the 15-minute city development model. Just a bit about my background. Like many of you in the audience, probably, I come from a background in architecture and urban design. And as a practitioner, I experienced firsthand the challenges and limitations of working with data, integrating data into projects. Really, the tools and the methods we're using at the moment many times are inadequate. Tools are difficult to use. The data is not always accessible. So it's really a challenge to work around data. And at DVF, we're interested in developing tools to make this process much easier and make these tools available to a wider audience, to more people, so more people can integrate data-driven models and data-driven decision-making into their projects. So what is DVF? DVF is a software development company. We work on developing different products, digital solutions, web-based platforms across different stages of the design process. We focus on solutions for the AEC industry. Today, I will be showing you the module that we developed for the city scale, for urban analysis and city analysis, citywide analysis. But we also worked at different scales. We work at the building design scale. We use and integrate different technologies. We use generative design to automate and improve design workflows at the level of the building design. We also work at the component level, so drawing floor plans and automating processes around detailing a building. We build AI configurators that make this process a lot more easier, and we power all this with the use of data. So for the 15-minute city, we started looking at this idea some time ago, maybe when the term was starting to emerge. And we thought this idea was quite interesting as it links multiple levels of the design process. So with the 15-minute city concept, you tie together building design, what the impact of the building is to the city. It ties it together with neighborhood development, so how the neighborhood can change to improve the city. And then again, it ties all together at the city level, how improving different neighborhoods around the city and looking at the impact of different projects in the city can make a difference in aligning development to sustainable development goals. Since then, we've been seeing in the news and for the last few years, this idea has started to become more popular, even becoming a hot topic, conspiracy theory. But really, the idea is quite powerful, and it generates conversation around it. So for this, we started looking at developing tools for urban analysis that would allow people to easily get started with this analysis. So we provide the data, we make data workflows available, and really just overcoming the different challenges about analyzing a site and getting meaningful insights. On a typical project, if you want to integrate data-driven analysis, it typically requires you to work with a GIS team, and it requires you to have experts that can work with the statistical models, geospatial statistical models. And setting up just a simple analysis, what would make look simple, workability analysis, setting it up is not easy at all. So a lot of people are excluded from the process, and a lot of projects suffer from not having data from day one. So our tool is aimed at overcoming these barriers and And the idea is that with the platform that I'll show you, you'll be able to very quickly perform different sets of analysis on accessibility to services, walkability, use of bike lanes, efficiency of public transportation, and evaluate different neighborhoods or the city you're working in. From operates globally, so it really works anywhere you have a project. You need to get started with some data. We can provide that. And just diving a bit more deep into it, in this journey, we've been working together with Carlos Moreno as a scientific advisor. Carlos Moreno is the main proponent of the concept of the 15-minute city. And together with him, we've looked at developing meaningful KPIs that would allow you to evaluate city development based on this concept. So these KPIs are meant to help you understand how to better allocate resources in the city, how to identify key services and amenities that may be missing from an area, and how to distribute them in an effective, efficient way that will have an impact in the city. You can also look at the diversity of uses, so looking at how well balanced and how well mixed these different services are distributed in the city. You can use these KPIs to investigate or test out more effective ways of setting up the street networks and transportation systems. You can also look at these KPIs to inform the development of different design scenarios. And I'll touch on that during the demo, but you can create design scenarios and measure the impact of your design proposals, looking at how this will contribute to building more sustainable, more walkable, and more complete cities. Great. Just as a reminder, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. And at the end of the presentation, we'll be taking some of the questions that you may have. So just to provide some background, I will be playing a short video on the idea of the 15-minute concept, and then I'll jump into the demonstration.
Imagine living in a neighborhood where everything you need is a few minutes away. In a 15-minute city, you can take a short walk, bike, or commute to enjoy high-quality social life. And it's not just about the time it takes to get there, but also about making sure that the services are accessible for everyone, no matter their age, ability, or life stage. The creation of socially fulfilling neighborhoods takes time, often step by step, even over centuries. However, to accommodate rapid urbanization, the use of digital tools can inform and accelerate this process. From the neighborhood scale to the city scale, DVF Urban Insights is a digital toolkit to help city makers inform the design and planning of cities in order to enable future-proof urban transformation. That translates to real-time urban diagnosis to uncover hidden opportunities for community revitalization, recommendations to transform vacant land into vibrant and thriving spaces, data-driven decisions to choose the best design for the well-being of residents, enabling co-creation between resident and urban planners to unlock a more inclusive and user-driven city design process. The future of cities is experience-driven and will be fueled by informed digital technologies. DVF provides the capabilities to create future-proof cities. Introducing DVF Urban Insights.
Great. So let me jump into the platform. I will be walking you through the Urban Insights module, and we'll look at the different measuring KPIs. We'll test out a few different cities, and we'll look at analyzing different neighborhoods and testing out some design scenarios. So as I was mentioning, a lot of the tools that we use at the moment for urban analysis, coming from the industry, I practice a lot, and it was really a need to integrate data into the design process, but there was always a challenge to get hold on this data, have up-to-date data, and be able to really manipulate it and use it in a meaningful way. And part of that was also because the tools we have are not built to manage data. And then, as I said earlier, if you really want to perform analysis using urban data, then you have to move on to the more advanced tools and geospatial analysis packages, which not a lot of people can operate, and they struggle with introducing early on this type of analysis into a project. So DVF is a very user-friendly, simple tool, and our idea was, again, to make this very accessible to everyone. So you can see our tool is a web-based tool. So to access it, you really just need to have access to a web browser and connection to the internet. You log in anywhere you are and with any computer you may have, and you just come into this landing page where, to get started, you just simply need to type in the name of a city. So I'll just get started with New York. Just type it into the search bar and click on search to start the project. So now then the map tool is loading. What we're waiting for now, it's transitioning to the city that we specified. And at that point, when you're searching for a city, really you can just type in an address, search for any city, and this would take you to the map operates globally, so it really there's no restriction to the areas that you may want to access. So if I zoom out right now, I just pick New York, but you can just explore any city around the world. So let's go back here to New York. As you can see here, we're in a web map environment on the web. We'll zoom in to Manhattan, and let's get started with looking at walkability. So for the 15-minute city, the core concept is to make services and key services and key amenities available to people. So with this, we can just get started by looking at walking access. So I'll just trigger the analysis. This just drops a point. And then we see an isochron. An isochron is this shaded area. The isochron represents the distance that a person can access in a 15-minute walking distance. We have some controls over this. So if we're interested in looking at accessibility by bike, we can also activate bike, and then this will show us update the area, the reachable area, using a different travel mode. So in this case, we're looking at what's accessible within 15 minutes by bike. And we can also look at the transit system. So if you're using the bus lanes and the bus routes, we can switch to bus, and it will show us the area at that point in 15 minutes. Let me go back to walking. And again, other controls that you have is distance in time. So if we want to see what's accessible within 10 minutes, we can also do that. And if we want to look at 15 or 20 minutes, we can play with these controls to set our area of analysis. I'll go back to 15 minutes, and we'll start by exploring this area. So right now I'm in somewhere in central Manhattan, and now that I know what area is accessible walking in 15 minutes, I'm interested in knowing what services, amenities, what key services are available within this area. So for that, I can trigger the fulfillment KPI. So what the fulfillment KPI is going to show is key services and amenities available in this area. Again, here we work with third-party data that is updated constantly. So this data, you can start using it from day one. But if you have a proprietary data set, we also work on developing custom solutions where this data can be replaced by custom data set from an organization. And now that we see what services are available, we can look at the score panel on the left, and we see that this neighborhood is performing quite well. It's very well equipped. We're performing at 90%, which means that this neighborhood is actually very well served, and it's a great neighborhood to live in. If we dive in or drill in into the data, we can look at across different categories how we are performing in each one of those segments. So, for example, in most of them, we're doing quite well. Enjoying is hitting 100, living is quite high at 94, supplying is quite well supplied. We hit 100 again, but we can then see the difference and then investigate what's happening in each one of the different categories and look at what uses are missing in the area. So this tool really helps us understand, and this KPI, fulfillment KPI, helps us understand what exists in the area and identify the gaps on what's missing in the area. So let's say for learning, we're not hitting 100% because there are some uses that might be missing from this area. In this case, I think school is scoring low. Another KPI that I will show you is diversity. So now that we know what's available in the area, we can look at how balanced these different services are provided in the area. So again, this area is a great place to live in. We're hitting 94, one meaning the area is well balanced, well mixed across different uses. So this KPI, the diversity KPI, what measures is the proportion of uses or the distribution of uses in an area. This can help you identify areas where there is a predominant use. So we might go to another neighborhood and then we only find maybe offices and very little housing. So we can identify areas where you could provide more of a certain land use or of a certain density of use to balance the neighborhood better and therefore create a more well-mixed, well-balanced neighborhood. The next KPI that I would like to show you is density. So here's where the tool becomes a bit more interactive. For density, if you know the population that lives in this area, you can input that number straight away. But you can also use this as a simulation tool. So let's say here I'm going to input, I'm going to assume a population of 45,000 people and calculate density for this area. So what density does is it looks at the amount of services versus the amount of the population that would live in this area. And it looks at whether the services in the area are sufficient or insufficient to serve this population. Right now, with a population of 45,000 people within this area of analysis, we're actually hitting a balanced distribution. So meaning that the amount of services in the area are well balanced to the amount of population that exists in this area. We can see that maybe for some of the other, in the breakdown for some of the scores, there might be things that are missing that could be provided if we added additional services under that category. For example, enjoying is a bit low, so meaning that maybe we could increase the number of parks or we could increase the number of playgrounds so that the distribution of amount of people and services that are serving this population would be more balanced or more adequate to serve them. And then you can also play with this, looking at what happens if you decrease the population or if you switch certain land uses from, let's say you have some commercial uses, some residential buildings that you want to turn into commercial use, so therefore maybe the population living in the area would decrease, you can play with this number and recalculate the analysis, and then you would see whether you need to add or take away, perhaps add more density, until you hit 1 again, meaning that you have provided the services that are sufficient to serve the population in the area. Now, let me show you in terms of distance to services. So just go to another neighborhood. I think I've saved here another area. Sorry, here. So here I just moved to different area of New York. So here we're in the middle of Brooklyn, and we're looking at the CO2 analysis. So what CO2 looks at is, given the reach area that a person can walk within 15 minutes, some services or some key amenities will not be present within the 15-minute walk. So we can trigger CO2 to look at how far these missing features are from our point of interest. So let's say if we look at a library, is right at the edge of the 15-minute walk. So okay, in this case, it could be considered almost inside the threshold. But if we look at schools, we can see that from this area, most schools are actually quite far away. So what we're looking at is for different services, we calculate what this would mean in terms of a car trip. So if the use is not found within this area, then a person would presumably have to take some form of transport to reach this need. And therefore, for the overall population, there would be a number of car trips being made that would contribute to producing CO2 emissions. If we relocate some of these uses within the area of the 15-minute walk, then we would reduce, of course, the amount of carbon emissions that we're producing in this area of the city. And now I'll just show you very quickly design scenarios and creating scenarios to sort of project and also calculate or perform analysis on what a potential urban intervention would look like. So here I've moved to another city, and now I'm in the city of Dubai. And here we're looking at a neighborhood that is currently an industrial neighborhood, potentially going revitalization and redevelopment. So I have loaded a couple projects, and the idea is to be able to create scenarios where you can introduce a design proposal or simulate a design scenario for development and calculate then the same KPIs to see what the impact of these proposals would be in terms of the 15-minute city. So again, I'll trigger the isochrone and we'll start with the fulfillment analysis. We know the area that it's reached within the 15-minute walk. And here we can do a before and after comparison. So before we've done anything to this neighborhood, as it is the baseline case, you can see that there are a number of uses missing. So this neighborhood, as opposed to central Manhattan, is actually performing quite low at 23%. If we go down to look at what's missing, a lot of different key services are missing from this area. Caring is performing at 0%, learning is performing at 0%, and really most of them are below 50%. So this area, for obvious reasons, it used to have other purposes, not an active, vibrant neighborhood. It's missing a lot of different uses. So once we introduce our design proposal, we can then test this scenario and look at how much the impact of our development scenario would be or would mean to the neighborhood. So we've introduced these two blocks where we've redeveloped and proposed some additional buildings with different uses. The tool is interactive. You can drill down and check on like what these different uses are and versus the existing ones. And And we can see that after we introduce these new uses to the neighborhood, then our score jumps to 52%. We have provided for some of these missing uses that were not present in the area. So if we look at caring, we were at 0% before, now we are at 60%. And again, learning was also another use that we introduced. I think this purple building over here, it's representing some additional features that we have introduced in terms of learning. And you can see how this bumps up then the score. And that way, then you can create any number of the different design scenarios to test out what the best way for redevelopment of a neighborhood would be, what it would mean to replace some set of buildings for a different type of building types, or rezone and restructure the city with different land uses. And just to wrap up, because I think I've gone through most of the KPIs that I wanted to share in this session, I'll just show you how this connects to our other tools. So you may be wondering how we brought in this design proposal. So again, we're looking at making this type of studies very easy and accessible. So for creating a design proposal, this is our other tool, which looks at the building design scale. And here, using generative AI, we can quickly create design scenarios with the functions that we want to introduce to a particular site. So I have isolated a site of interest that I would like to redevelop. I have split this into four potential plots for redevelopment. And then I just simply can select from the menu some typologies, click on generate, and start getting some design proposals that I can use then to install into the city and test out what the impact of this would be, looking at the improvement in terms of walkability, access to services, to develop more complete neighborhoods around the idea of the 15-minute city. Okay, I think maybe with this I've coming to an end on the platform. And just very quickly recapping, we can move around to a different area of the city, and really without any use to any complicated setup, you can just test out and bring the data of that particular area of the city and test out how a particular neighborhood is performing. And with this, maybe we can start moving to Q&A. I see we have some questions already, so let me just switch back. Any further questions and you would like to connect with us, please feel free to follow us on our different channels. If you think this content was interesting and there was someone that wasn't able to watch this session, please share the video with them. We're happy to connect at any point. So if you guys want to drop us a line, send us an email. We're happy to set up also private demos and talk more about the tool. There are many other features that we didn't get to cover this session, but we love to show you and then understand better what applications this may have for your projects, for the companies you work with. And we're happy to chat anytime.